Hello and welcome to Mindset, Money, Success podcast, and I'm your host, Loraine Marshall, and today I am going to be talking about it's post-separation legal abuse, not conflict. This is an article I wrote in April of 2023, and you can find it on my blog, which is called lifechangeplans.com. Abusers can torment their exes through courts in a form of coercive control post-separation. Separating from a domestic abuser may not stop the abuse. Domestic abusers will vengefully harm and seek to punish their ex-spouse or partner. They want to win at all costs. Coercive control of a partner continues long after the relationship ends. In my story, I did not realize that I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. I really only made the discovery 2 weeks after he'd returned to the UK at the end of September 2020. He left our home in Spain as he was with the woman he had declared he was now in love with. He went to stay with her in her home. There were still lockdown rules after flying from one country to another country and having to self-isolate at home for up to 14 days. When he left me, I had no legal representation and everyone around me was telling me to seek legal advice. I already had been subjected to intimidation when he had had an angry outburst towards me. The first incident occurred after he ended the relationship. It happened on September the 4th, 2020, and it was in the bedroom while I was resting on the bed and reading. I heard him talking to someone on the phone, and I had an uneasy feeling. The next thing I knew, he burst into the bedroom and was in my face shouting at me. The phone call had been from the agent who I had instructed for the sale of the property. He told me he had received feedback from the agent that I had made a negative comment to the people who viewed. He threatened me, saying not to F with him, and he was in control, and I do as he says, and if I don't, I'm out on the streets. Everything was happening so quickly, and on the 25th he returned from the UK to Spain, and on the 27th abruptly terminated the relationship, and on the 29th he wrote out a letter with some figures for me to consider. He sent that letter to me in an email that morning. The weekend before he arrived in Spain, he had spent 2 days doing a transformational breakthrough therapy with an ex-GP, NLP hypnotherapist. That was meant to be to help him with his physical well-being. He has a host of health issues, including diabetes, Crohn's disease, and arthritis. Unknown to me at the time, an ex-girlfriend from 38 years in his past had recommended a therapist to him, the woman he was now leaving me for. So by the 30th of August, the agent was texting me to visit to take photographs at the property, yet nothing had really been discussed. I was still in shock at the way he had ended things, yet here I was doing his bidding like the dutiful housewife, partner or servant. The agent wanted to visit on Tuesday and the 1st of September, and I agreed. By the 2nd of September, the agent had clients who wanted to view the next day. So I was doing everything to help him in his decision to sell the property. The fact is that I was asked about the traffic on the motorway by one of her clients. So I gave my honest reply, which was, you can hear the odd lorry zoom down the motorway at 6 a.m. when you have the windows open. The agent's feedback to him was then turned into a negative comment that would put buyers off, and I was being blamed, threatened, intimidated. Things were turning nasty, and I was fearful of him and his behaviour. He had blasted out his anger, and I was being told to watch my step. I was now treading on eggshells. I sent a text to my friend and my neighbour to tell them I had been threatened. My neighbour even replied to say, I hope it's not going to get nasty. I also sent a text to the agent who I had considered to be a friend. She thought the ex-partner had instructed her to sell the house, so I had to put her straight on that one. I told her I had been threatened because of the feedback that she had given, and she replied, "I'm very, very sorry. I really am. I don't know what to say." The second incident post-separation was on the 15th of September 2020. This was after the weekend that I had been in the Zoom meetings with the same ex-GP, NLP, hypnotherapist for breakthrough transformational coaching that the ex had decided and offered me the day before the brutal 4-sentence discard speech. He told me that this coaching would help me to have the success in business that I always wanted. Only when he offered that help, we were still together. He had told me that he could book flights, we could return to the UK, he would hire a car and book a hotel and would be there for me while I did the 2 days of therapy. In my mind, all I could think was, why? So I now had his letter that outlined how he was going to help me financially, since I had become wholly dependent on him since January of 2018, after his confession of cheating and infidelity in our relationship. I tried to have a conversation with him to talk through the offers, only I found it impossible. When I had gone to speak with him, I found him sitting in the games room at the house. He was talking to someone over his iPad while trimming cannabis buds from the plants he had just harvested. I outlined some of my thoughts and ideas based on his offer of 50% of the value of the property and paying down a house mortgage on a property I owned in the UK. Only when I walked into the room, he introduced me to his new woman. He said to me, "Loraine, this is Debbie. Debbie, this is Loraine." And I heard her say in a squeaky voice, "I think you are doing remarkably well." I looked at him and said, "I will write you an email," and walked away. I wonder if she would still say that today after everything I have been through these last 2.5 years. We had arranged a meeting to discuss the financial offer he was making. I had written my proposal and sent it to him on the 12th of September, and my idea was to try to buy out his 50% of the property. His letter was telling me I would be gifted the money after I moved out, and I thought, how can I move out? I have no income, no job, I can't leave the property, and I can't trust him. He has lied and cheated over and over again. His letter was like a carrot dangling. "When you move out, I will gift you £35,000. He even said he would rent me a property if I wanted to leave immediately, saying, "You have been very clear that you want to move on as quickly as possible." This was a fabrication. I had never indicated at any time that I wanted to move on quickly. This was him projecting onto me, as narcissists do. I wanted to start a retreat business at the property. I had even spoken to the coach about this. I thought maybe I could crowdfund to raise the money to buy out his share and start the business. By mid-afternoon on the 15th, I started to receive texts that alerted me that he was angry again. Why? A former friend of mine, or ours, had shared the link to the GoFund page on her Facebook profile. I had sent the link privately to a few friends and neighbours, and all of a sudden I am being accused of laundering his infidelity in public. His text message read, "Then launder my infidelity in a public begging letter using my house as bait? Are you out of your mind?" I replied, "Who knows? My mind came up with the idea." His reply, We discussed what I expected of you as a condition of staying there, and you have effed up already. Actually, we had not discussed anything, apart from the night of the abrupt discard. I had not really wanted to talk with him. He then went on to tell me over these texts, "I have treated you with respect. Treating me disrespectfully is not being strong. I will not tolerate it." He referred to my previous message where I'd said I was not strong enough in our relationship, and what I really meant was that I should have been and made stronger boundaries. I should not have allowed him to devalue and degrade me, humiliate me, disrespect me, or be verbally and emotionally abusive towards me. I made excuses for him, I brushed things under the carpet, and I accepted a lot of things in his sexual behaviours that I should not have been, and I should have said no to. I now know that sexual coercion can be part of a pattern of abuse. A person who possesses narcissistic traits such as entitlement, low empathy, or superiority within a sexual context may coerce and manipulate others to fulfill their own physical and sexual needs and may not care for the wishes or concerns of others. He then asks me if there any point in meeting that evening. In my reply I say, "You can come here as planned, as long as you are calm and not angry or abusive." The meeting went ahead. I had made the request to record what was to be discussed. 1. It would provide a record of things agreed upon that could be transcribed and taken to be notarized. 2. I felt safer in that I believed he would stay calm and not get angry. I was wrong. He did get angry. I was not even allowed to speak. He shut me down. The discussion of the financial proposal that I had sent to him. It was his way or no way at all. He talked about what he wanted and what he needed. He said, "You need to be absolutely clear about what I want and need, because reading through this document you put together, I don't really think you've listened at all to what I need. Or maybe I haven't made it clear enough. So I need to make clear to you what I want and what I need. And then you need to go away and think about it, because the first thing I want is I want to break off, terminate, get rid of all my financial, physical obligations and commitments to you. I want it to stop." I asked him if he would pay off the remaining mortgage on the property investment in the UK, and he told me he couldn't do that as he didn't have the money. I thought that was strange, as he had said that if I left the house, he would gift me 35,000 for that purpose. Then after I had got the redemption figure, which was 28,500, he conveniently said he didn't have the money. His verbal garbage continued. "So I'm not interested in investing in your property or anything else. I'm not interested. I have offered you some money, and with that money you can do what you want, but I don't want to get involved in it. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to be involved. I want a clean break. That's what we said. That's what we discussed. That's what I want. That's what I want, a clean break. Now talk about exactly how and when, but you need to understand that anything you want to do that relies on me making investments beyond whatever time we decide the cut-off for all this is, it isn't gonna happen." So in this short little speech of his, he talks about that's what we said, that's what we discussed. This was the first time that we had sat down together, so nothing had been agreed upon, nothing had been discussed. Plus, when he says, beyond whatever time we decide the cut-off for all this is, The "we decide" means nothing if I am unable to discuss things, so there were never any "we decide." The whole meeting turned into a one-sided, unequal speech or lecture. When I do get the opportunity to say something, I can hardly string a full sentence together. Besides, the first thoughts that came into my head were, "Oh, I'll just kill myself, should I?" It just got worse. I was accused, blamed, belittled. He even said, "We don't communicate terribly well, and you have a habit of grabbing some idea and running off with it without stopping and thinking about it. This GoFundMe thing is a perfect example. My point is, you haven't considered me and what I want, because you know that's not generally what you do. Now I'm telling you, I want it over and done with. And if we can stay friends, let's stay friends. But I want it over and done with. I do not want to be hanging on to investment in your house or anything else. Not at all. It's a terribly, terribly, terribly bad idea, and it isn't going to happen." Reeling back from the shock of all of that, later he even tells me that I lack empathy, while also saying that what I don't understand is that you do not negotiate a gift. You cannot negotiate a gift. You can't do that. Then he sets the deadline for all of it to be over. I propose we set the deadline of the 15th of January. He means he has just set the deadline without asking me. That gives you just over 4 months. 4 months, not 1 month, not 3 months, 4 months, right? I'm in shock. What does he think I'm going to do in 4 months? He continues his verbal ranting, tells me, "I'm not putting this past the 15th of January, because if you don't buy it on the 15th of January, if this place isn't sold on the 15th of January, I am moving back in on the 16th of January. You've got 4 months in this house, and if you haven't bought it, and if it isn't sold, I'm moving back in, and you are out on the 15th of January at the latest, and I will gift you that money when you leave." So I'm thinking, how do I leave? Where do I go? If I have no money, could I actually trust him to pay the money if I have already left the property? After I question the deadline of January the 15th, he completely loses it. 13 minutes into the meeting, he shouts and rages at me in a violent outburst. "You can't negotiate with me. I've told you why. It's my choice." He violently bangs his hand down on the glass coffee table, saying, "I'll make it the 15th of fucking November if I want to. Don't fuck about with me. I've told you 4 months. I've told you the 15th of January. You ask me why? I said because of Christmas. Do not push your luck. Do you understand me?" After this outburst, I'm feeling intimidated, shell-shocked, frightened, and sick to the pit of my stomach. How does he do that? How does he make me feel this way? I reply in a whisper, "Perfectly." He just says, "Good." Then continues his rant with, "Don't take the piss out of me. You've had 1 strike already, and you were that far away to have your fucking suitcases thrown out the fucking door, so just be careful how you tread, like I've said to you this afternoon." Now in a quiet voice, "Your future security depends on having me on your side, so don't alienate me. And I've told you already, you can't negotiate a gift." As soon as October the 5th, I realized I was dealing with a narcissist. It was too late. I had caused him narcissistic injury, and he was now going to court to evict me from the property he had offered to share with me. So there were not any 4 months, and he did not return to Spain and kick me out of the property in January 2021. He got engaged to the woman he left to be with at just 6 weeks after leaving Spain. He posted on social media how he was happier and healthier than ever before, then married his former girlfriend in May 2021. There have been 8 or 9 attempts to come to some win-win solution. The thing is, you cannot negotiate with him. As any person who has dealt with conflict, divorce or separation involving a narcissist will tell you, they tend to move the goalposts all of the time, and when you think you have reached the agreement, they will back out or add something else in to the deal. And this is how things played out. Here are just some of the attempts to come to a solution. Offers of $115,000 with no less than 50% of the property value, 15th of September 2020, or I could buy out his 50%. You will leave with nothing. You are entitled to nothing from me, the 5th of October 2020. To a mediation January to April 2021, another attempt. It started with $13,000 after you leave. Then went to $40,000 paid in installments. Again failed. Then, mid-July 2021, in a face-to-face public meeting where I hand wrote the details that he was prepared to offer $10,000 in 2 weeks, a total of $40,000 plus the furniture from the property and money that would be paid on sale agreed, with a potential buyer ready to pay the deposit. He changed the agreement with no further negotiations to balance paid on vacant possession, and the buyers dropped out, unsurprisingly. Before he left me, I was already confused. I was in shock at how he had blamed me for being disrespectful, how he told me I lacked empathy, how he was enraged and angry. There was so much more in his 23 minutes long meeting. The full transcript appears in my book, Post-Separation Abuse, Betrayal and Abandonment, What Type of Man. I self-published my book in May 2022. It took me from April 2021 when I started with the outline. I intend to write and publish the sequel to this book, as my journey and mission are not over yet. I write this article in April 2023, 2 years since I started my first book. The civil court verbal hearing for precarious eviction was heard in June the 10th, 2022. An appeal was lodged by the public appointed defence lawyer. It has taken from July 2022 to now for the appeal to be heard, and I have been informed on April the 25th it is a closed hearing. No further evidence has been submitted and no attendance is required. As someone who worked in welfare rights and tribunals, I find this extraordinary. How can any appeal be given a fair hearing if there's no evidence provided that can show that the plaintiff's court documents were fabrications and misrepresentation and omitted the facts? The expensive law firm from Barcelona had been lied to and manipulated. The court documents before the verbal hearing stated that he asked me to leave the property in September 2020, giving me time to find a job and find a place to live. That he had tried to end things in a friendly manner. Then it says he gave me until November for the same reason. All rubbish. And yet, none of the documents that I have were presented to the court, not even the letter of his financial offer or the recording of his verbal agreements and the verbally abusive, intimidating behaviours. So the reason for writing my first book and my plans to write the sequel are not as a revengeful, spiteful act towards the ex, as he seems to think. I have written my book to show how, despite elaborate laws on domestic abuse and gender violence that includes the crimes of emotional and psychological abuse, verbal abuse, economic abuse, coercive and controlling behaviours, the victimised often do not see justice. Meanwhile, the ex and his lawyers have filed 7 criminal charges against me because I have told my story, plus a 3rd litigation in a civil court against me, so he can claim his court costs and a sum for his moral damages. When will I get my life back? When will I be vindicated? When will I see justice? The courts and other institutions need to be put on their guard against unwittingly serving as an arm that extends the abuser's reach post-separation. Saunders et al. 2016. Despite the research, it's not changing anything. So I published my first book under my pen name, Loraine, and I tell my story, not to cause him moral damage. He bought the book and stalked my social media platforms and took screenshots to allege defamation and slander about him. In this book, his character is Philip Holby. So again, the title of my book, Post-Separation Abuse, Betrayal and Abandonment, What Type of Man? And it is now being made available in Spanish because I am in Spain and I think some of the professionals need to read this book.